Well, the counselling service has been developed over the last 9 years now. And basically it was a consultation between my other colleague and myself. With the issues that we were working with the sex ed and relationships, we kind of realised that, yeah, people needed the opportunity for counselling.
The counselling service is for male or female, anybody over the age of 16 who has a learning disability.
There is a structure within counselling, one that the counsellor doesn't set the agenda, that the person is allowed to come into the session and quite honestly to be able to talk about whatever's significant at that particular time.
Some of the issues that come into the counselling sessions, again, are quite wide-ranging. Possibly quite a big one is bereavement, because in my experience a lot of people who've had a bereavement in the family, someone close to them, people working with them haven't always been aware of how much they've been affected by it, and it might not be till some time later their behaviours change and they're perhaps sent to counselling because of their behaviour, and it becomes apparent then that part of it has been the bereavement and the fact they've not been able to express their feelings around that.
So the kind of issues that we work with within the counselling will be all the issues which would be probably mainstream, as I call mainstream. There would be issues to do with wanting to form relationships, breakdown of relationships. There may be issues with loss, which would be no different from the rest of the population. There may be issues with sexual identity, and for those people, just having the opportunity to explore, maybe for the first time in their life. There may also be issues, and quite often, around sexual abuse or the inappropriateness of some behaviours with people they work with. So it's a combination of lots of generic approaches, no different from the rest of the population.
A case study we had here at the Counselling Centre was a young man who was sent from the residential home where he lived. They made the referral because of his behaviour. It had changed in the recent weeks. He'd become more challenging, throwing things about, was obviously upset, but they were unclear as to why he was so upset. He had lost his mother 6 months previously, but they felt he dealt with that okay at the time, and they didn't feel it was related to that. He was non-verbal, so he wasn't able to talk to me or tell me how he was feeling. What I started with was visual. We've got a big whiteboard. I got the whiteboard out and some pens, started drawing pictures, happy faces, sad faces, getting him to point to the face that he felt he was identifying with. And we went on for some weeks like that, drawing. But the one week I decided not to use the whiteboards. He came into the room and he was looking round, obviously looking for the board, and I didn't say anything. And then he got up then and went to the cupboard and indicated he wanted to get the board out. So we got the board out and the pens, and after that it was him who initiated it when he came in, whether he wanted the board or not. So through that medium of drawing, and it was obviously his choice, he was able to explore. It came out that it was about his mum, really. He was missing her and was still upset about him. And he was able to, through the counselling sessions, express that grief and show how he was feeling on his drawings and talk about his mum. And he started to bring things in from home that belonged to his mum to show me, his photograph of her, pieces of jewellery she'd left him. And I felt gave him the opportunity or a place to explore that grief, go through that grieving process that we all have to go through when we lose somebody, and come to terms with it.
The case study that I'm going to talk about, when I talk about this person wasn't able to communicate verbally, and yet for her there was other means of communicating. She'd lost her dad 7 years ago. She ended up spending most of the time in a bedroom listening to CDs, listening to music. The issues were that she was grieving for her dad, and this was kind of 7 years on, and for her there was a few changes that happened in her life, and I think everything had escalated to her feeling the loss of her dad. So she came for counselling. It was a few weeks before she would even acknowledge me and therefore give me eye contact. She didn't communicate verbally. It was kind of, now what can I use? And straight away I kind of thought about the Gestalt approach and being creative and just work with what was in front. And what was in front, that she had a bag, and she had a bag of CDs. And the CDs themselves said to me that this is another form of communication for her. So I guess I talked about whether she would want to play any of those CDs that may help her and prompt her to be in the counselling. So initially she kind of just looked at me and thought, I'm not too sure about this person. Can I trust? Shall I trust? And also, is it okay to share my life with this counsellor's life? And it was about 3 weeks that she decided that she would. So in the background, right behind me, I had a unit already waiting for her to prompt and initiate whether she wanted to, and she did. She got up, she went over, put the music on, put the sound down to the music, and sat in front of me and began to move her body, just sitting. But with that prompt enabled her to start verbally talking and using sign language and Makaton. And in that, I mean, I was aware of Makaton and I can use some Makaton. So we started, basically 3 weeks on, we started our relationship. And for this particular person, she's been in counselling now for 18 months.
People with learning disabilities are no different to any other people in the community, in life. They have the same sort of problems that everybody experiences. They may have problems around bereavement, around relationships, around self-esteem. Our counselling service gives them the opportunity to talk about these problems, whatever's important to them, to work through them, to explore them, and hopefully come to some resolution about them.
Quite often, the people who can have access to alcohol and drug relating will be those people who have less of a supported need and therefore seem to be deemed more mobile and more capable of managing their lives. Unfortunately, on an emotional level, that's in some cases not the case, and people then turn to alcohol and drugs to get through, and that will probably to get through really not understanding some of the emotional aspects of the word jealousy comes up. Unless you know what jealousy is, can't deal with it, and yet because they are not aware of the word jealousy, internalise it and turn for other ways of comfort. So we do, and we continue to work with people who are addicts to either drug related or alcohol.
Both Carl and myself work to BACP guidelines, and I have regular supervision of my work to ensure that I'm working in a safe and ethical way with my clients.